what's going on, people? Knowledge here. So we are in the aftermath of finding out that Donald Trump has won presidency here in America. And, I did go out and vote yesterday. I voted strategically, that is. I'm not going to get into how I voted, but I did vote strategically. And I've been one of the people who have been out here, if you guys follow me on social media, that have been saying Hillary Clinton did not have this election in the bag. A lot of people thought that because Donald Trump came out here and said all this outlandish things and, talking about how he'll grab a woman by the pussy and make all these racist comments, that he had no chance of winning this election. But if you look at the overall process before this moment even came, Donald Trump won the primary. So when he won the primaries, I said, okay, this guy has a following. Whether, we agree with the things he says or, all the outlandish, crazy stuff that comes out of this guy's mouth, there are people who support his movement. So because of that, I knew that Hillary didn't, have this election in the bag. I felt like during, the debates and everything, neither one of them really came with solid solutions on, how to change certain things here in this country, but especially, towards the black community. And I listened for black community issues because for the last 8 years, we've been ignored. So, I think at this point, the black community, we need to focus on us. We need to focus on our issues. We can't be concerned about what's going on with the LGBT community or immigrants and all this other stuff that's going on. I'm not saying that their issues are not important, but at the same time, at this point in our country, we have to be selfish. And I think that black Americans are not selfish enough about our needs. We tend to give people the benefit of the doubt, especially if they look like us. So, that's been something that I've been looking at, and neither Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump really addressed our issues or came with realistic, solid solutions. But when I looked at Donald Trump's campaign, I looked at Hillary's campaign. Hillary more or less was trying to discredit Donald Trump as a politician more than actually connecting with the people. And when we have a black president that was in office for 8 years, and like I've said before, whether we like President Obama or not, whether we agree with, some of his policies or whether he ignored the black community or whatever, he is a proxy to us. So there are going to be people, whether you have racist whites or people with certain agendas, that are going to hop on the bandwagon of Donald Trump, as ignorant as that guy is, simply to push their agenda and basically get payback for the fact that we had a black man in presidency for the last 8 years. So all this plays a part into why, Donald Trump is going to be the president of the United States, as weird as that sounds. But, I really didn't give a damn who won, because I already know that the black community, we're going to take slings and shots no matter who was in there. You got Donald Trump that supports private prisons, for economical reasons. And then you have Hillary, who called young black males super predators back in the 90s. And don't think a woman at her age just magically changed her mindset about that. Of course, she was going to come out and say, I apologize, and, those were comments that I shouldn't have made, and et cetera, because she's running to be the president, and she needs that black vote. So, of course, she was going to come out and apologize for that. But to think that a woman at her age just simply changed up that quick and had a change of heart is completely ludicrous. She believes that about young black males and probably black people in general. So, that bullshit apology she threw out, it didn't resonate with me. And either way, I know that mass incarceration is going to come, but it's going to increase, going to amp up. The stop and frisk stuff that's going on is going to amp up. You're going to see a lot of slings and arrows thrown at the black community. All this stuff is going to amp up. And, my advice to our people is that, at this point in time, we really got to come together. We got to start controlling our dollar. We have to come up with a black agenda. I know there's a lot of people out there that, trying to say, oh, well, black folks complain about President Obama. Now you got Donald Trump in there. But those black folks who have been reprimanded and holding President Obama's feet to the fire had every right to, his last two terms, because when we look at how we went out and voted, I believe, 97, 98% black black votes went to President Obama. And then when we look at what he specifically done for our community, I'm not talking about quote unquote minorities or whatever, I'm talking about specifically for the black community. We really can't name one thing. So I don't blame, black folks are coming out like, Cornel West and Travis Smiley, and holding this guy's feet to the fire. And I think that, we have a group of people within our community that gave him a excuse. And now, they want to come out and they want to, go after Donald Trump. But if you weren't yelling at these last two terms and trying to organize and trying to get our people to come together and formulate a black agenda so that we have a direction when it comes to politics, then I don't want to hear nothing. Because the first thing, these racist white folks are going to say, they're going to say, well, hey, y'all didn't do this with Obama, so why are you doing this with Donald Trump? So, a lot of you guys that are playing that, that backyard boogie stuff where you want to give President Obama, a wide berth for the benefit of the doubt, but then now you want to become revolutionary. You want to put demands on Donald Trump. And I'm not saying you shouldn't, but at the same time, you got to sit back and you got to check yourself about what are you actually doing? What is the agenda and the message you're putting out when you don't hold our previous president to the fire, but yet you want to hold Donald Trump to the fire simply because of who he is. So that's just something that I think we have to organize, on, and we really got to come together and start controlling our dollar. We have to start organizing. We have to get away from just marching and praying, because, things will amp up. I'm warning you right now, and it's important that we are very cautious about the things we do out here, because now we are going to become more of a target than we were. Trust and believe. So it's important that we watch our steps. It's important that we really become organized in our progression here in this country, because it's no, it's been, a time where we need to do this, but it's no better time than now, because, we really going to see some stuff, and it's not going to be good. So, you guys can give me your feedback on what you felt about, this whole election. I'm not scared. I'm not worried about Trump being in office, because, one dude with a lace front wig is not going to stop my program. It's not going to stop my quality of life. That's just who I am. So I really didn't care who got in there, because I knew that we were going to have to do some adjustments as not just Americans, but as, the black community. So I didn't care who went in there, but, it is something that we have to adapt to, and we really have to get together and start organizing, because we will see a lot of change. We will see a lot of slings and arrows thrown our way. You think it was bad when President Obama was in there. We really going to see some stuff now. So, you guys give me your feedback. I'm interested in hearing what you guys thought about this election. If you went out and voted or whatever. And, let me say this. I understand some of our people not going out and voting, because I think that we do have to get away from just voting to just be voting, or saying that, oh, our ancestors did this, so, we could vote, and, oh, we need to vote for the lesser of the two evils. I think us as black Americans need to get away from that. But at the same time, you have to understand that there are props out there you have to vote for. There's public policy you have to be concerned about. So it's not just who will be the president of the United States. There's other things you have to vote for too. And I think that when you think you're being a rebel, or you think you're being revolutionary simply for just not voting at all, I think that can be very dangerous, because voting is important. Voting can be very powerful. And like I've been advocating, and a lot of other cats out here have been advocating, we have to start focusing on our local elections, because those are the elections that affect your backyard. Start finding out who your district attorney is. Start finding out who is dictating and making certain decisions within your community. We have to start getting involved in our local elections, not just the nationals. But when it comes to nationals, you do have to worry about props. But those local elections are, I think the key point we need to focus on within the black community. And I'm gonna leave it at that. I understand not just want to go out and vote for the lesser of two evils, but you have to understand that you can affect change through voting. So it is important. And that's just something that, I think people need to think about when we talk about just not voting at all. Don't just say, well, I'm not voting because I don't believe in the voting system and, and blah, blah, blah. Voting is very important, but it's about voting strategically. And it's about having the power to exercise your vote in the right way.